There you go, citizens. That's a game. That's a blueprint.
Yeah.
A lot of people talk a good game, especially if you're looking on social media, but they ain't got the backing to support it. That's the blueprint. They don't have the credentials to support it. That's the blueprint. Some people just speak it to you how they feel, but there's no proof of concept. What you just heard was a blueprint created by the one and only. And blueprint wasn't created not only because of the way he studied. He actually studied Heather B and got credentials as a PhD in holistic health, sports nutrition from the University in College of Natural Health. It's not just that. You know, at a point in his life, he was living an unhealthy life and wanted to change it.
Right.
Okay, and so he took the proper steps to lose 103 pounds.
Wow.
To get to the place where he is today. I met this man at a family reunion.
Okay.
Did not even know him. But I knew we had something in common because we had the same sneakers on. And I said, well, that got to be family right there.
Right.
And then when I found out what he does, I wanted to make sure at some point we get a chance to connect. He's the founder and owner of Plant-Based Fitness. He's known as Dr. Whittaker. I want to welcome him to the show. This is a family member. This is my cousin.
Wow.
Please welcome the one and only Dr. Gary Whittaker to
Yes,
the show today.
welcome.
Yo,
What up, baby?
what's going on, y'all? How y'all doing?
How you
Good morning.
doing, man?
I'm doing fantastic and incredible at the same time.
Shout out our family name, man.
Yo, shout out to the Walstons.
Mhm.
Shout out to the Whittakers.
Mhm.
Shout out to the Swans. Shout out to everything that brought us here collectively today.
Yes, indeed, man. We met how many years ago was
This
that?
was
reunion?
probably like about 4 years ago.
3 or 4 years ago.
I
He wasn't.
remember when you went.
You remember that?
Mhm.
Yeah, and I talked about it. I
Mhm.
met all these beautiful,
Different people,
amazing,
yeah.
different people from different sides of the family, and you weren't even going to go.
Nah. Yeah, my aunt was like, "Come on down," and I came through, and yeah, it was a good time. It was magical because it's just like you think about the 6 degrees of separation, and you don't know who you actually are connected to, and I think that was like a serendipitous moment. I'm like, wow, that's pretty dope.
Yeah.
Yo, that's Sway.
Yeah, walking up.
Yeah, just walking around like
Yep.
nothing, too.
Yep.
With a plate in my hand.
Yep.
I was gonna say,
Oh,
where was
my
you had your
gosh.
mighty fork with you?
Yo, man, I was talking to people I had never met in my life like we grew up together. That's how family reunion's supposed to be, right? And then, my grandmother, who has since transitioned, that's who I was there with, Elsie Waters,
Yep.
Elsie Waters, Elsie Waters. She was so happy that we were all there that day. And I remember we got family pictures, all sorts of stuff from that day, man.
Definitely.
And I'm glad we shared that. So Dr. Whittaker and I stayed in tune, and we've been in touch ever since, Heather B. And I invited him to come up here to talk
Beautiful.
about his company because citizens right now, we are all, even in this room, Heather B went to the gym yesterday.
Nice.
Why are you telling my business? I went last night. Correction, Dr. Whittaker. I went last night, but I found myself. I'm gonna go back a few months, just wanting some discipline and consistency in that area.
Definitely.
And it's not much, but I just do 45 minutes a day. I take the weekends off just because that helps me look forward to Monday or whatever day, but I give myself 2 days just to rest and to get back on track again. And I noticed that being consistent and having that discipline, when I do miss, or if I happen to miss more than 2 days, I feel like I need to be in there. Something feels a little off. I also find myself now, even though I live on the East Coast, wanting to get out and get more sun. I love the sun anyway. I don't have that issue of, I can't stand being in the sun. I get hot too fast. I love it, but I make it my business just to step outside, even if it's in my backyard, for 5 minutes a day, just to take it in. Even if I don't see the sun, I get out. So little by little for me, I'm not a person that just dives right in. I'm gonna make this big change in a week. It takes time for me to do it, and so I'm making little adjustments.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the key things that you said that was really powerful is that you are taking the time to develop the consistency. And I think that when we are trying to embark on a new habit, it's important for us to get those little wins. And those little wins lead up to bigger things because if anything, the key that we want to implement in our life is just the consistency. You know what I mean? Like it's the consistency of the habit because the thing about what we're trying to do is we have a subconscious, which is like 95% of our brain, and we have our conscious, which is 5%. And we're trying to fight against that 95% with only the 5% effort.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so that right there is really paramount to you getting that in the habit. And then also too, in places where we don't get a lot of sunshine, the thing is like we're in buildings. You know what I mean? Like before we were out and about, we were walking around, we were doing different things. We're getting more sun than we actually are now. And a lot of people suffer from vitamin D deficiency.
Mm-hmm.
And so with vitamin D deficiency, it leads to a lot of other illnesses and stuff like that. And back in the day in natural health, they used to actually do sunbathing as a form of therapy.
Really?
Yeah. And so there was actually prescriptions where they would get people, they would put them out in the sun for a certain period of time, and it would help to aid in the healing of certain health conditions. And so the thing is, we live in colder places. That's why we talk about right temperatures. We live in colder places now sometimes, but we're tropical people. You know what I mean? Like we have a relationship with the sun. We need the sun.
Yes.
You know, and I think that by you knowing how to get that, you know what I mean, and implement that in your life, because also you got to think about too, if you live in a place where it's cold, seasonal depression is real.
Mm-hmm. Seattle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I lived in the Midwest for about 10 years, and I came back to Cali, and the one thing that I didn't notice was that I was lightweight depressed. Like it was to the point where I wanted to stay in the house, and I didn't want to come outside. And I was like, and it's bright sunny, and I'm like, man, why don't I want to come outside? And I was like, man, I had to look it up, and it was seasonal depression. And I think even when we think about the violence that goes on in a lot of places, a lot of that is related to depression.
Wow, Dr. Gary Whittaker, man. Let's
Broke
give
that
out
down.
your I know. And then he dropped the mic all of a sudden. It got quiet, you know, like for something to think about here. Follow him. What's your Instagram?
My Instagram is Dr. Gary Whittaker.
At Dr. Gary Whittaker, at Dr. Gary Whittaker. Another thing you talked about is toxic relationships.
Oh, that should have been number one, right?
Yeah.
You know, I think so. We could talk about the health aspect, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times we focus on just the nutrition and the exercise, and we don't realize how the relationships that we hold can be killing us too as well. Like, for example, if you are stressed out in your home, it's like a response that you can't escape, because your home is probably where you spend a lot of time at.
It's supposed to be refuge, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you are there and you don't have a quality relationship with your partner, that relationship can potentially be killing you because it's producing stress hormones. Cortisol is a stress hormone, and that's what happens when you have any type of conflict. It's like a fight or flight response. So if you, more than likely, when people come to work, they have some form of that. You know what I mean? Like it's usually in workplaces where they're talking about, like, you know, anti-stress, meditation, relaxation. They even have pods where people go to relax. And so now if you take that and you don't get no break from that, and you transfer that to your house, then you're putting yourself in a toxic environment consistently, and that's where diseases actually come. It comes from your internal environment being uneasy, dis-ease.
Second time we heard that.
Yaki.
Yes.
Dr. Yaki Awaken came by the show and spoke
About
on
dis-ease.
Dis-ease.
Yep.
And then it's compounded because it depending on how many people in your household. If Heather and I live together and Horace.
Well, we kind of do. But
Okay,
Sway's
right.
over the house all the time.
All right.
Cousin.
Right.
Oh.
All right, but then Heather might bring in whatever she dealt with that day. I'm bringing in what I dealt in that day. Torch got what he dealt with that day. And then it's like a cocktail. It's a toxicity cocktail, right?
Yes.
How do you address that, though? Like, most families don't even realize that's happening.
Well, I think the biggest thing is that it starts from one person taking the stance of being a leader. You know what I mean? Like, you have to set the tone. And then you also have to work on, like, good communication. You know what I mean? I think that's the biggest thing, is like a lot of people don't work on becoming good communicators, and I think a lot of people are emotionally immature. You know what I mean? And so when you're in that environment, you have to just set these rules and these standards. Like, hey, this is how we're not gonna go to bed mad at each other. That's number one. Like, if you have an argument, sometimes you might need space. You know what I mean? Like, and then, you know what's really powerful? This is one thing that happened that I did with my son, is we had a meditation time. You know, and
every day?
Yep.
At what time?
When he was with me before we went to bed, we had a meditation, and in the morning we had a meditation.
Wow, how long?
It's usually about 30 minutes or so.
Okay.
You know, but for him, I said with kids, I said for however old you are, you have to do 1 minute.
Okay.
So my son was 11 at the time, so he knew that in his daily routine that was 11 minutes, and so it progresses as he gets older too as well. And I think even for adults, like, you know, not everybody's used to sitting still. Like meditation is not becoming a master. It's about just stillness, and that stillness, so many things come to you. You know what I mean? And so that's the one thing, like, I will recommend to anybody that's listening that wants to start meditation. I would say start with 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Okay.
2 minutes of just sitting still and focusing on your breath. Yep, and
I just saw the future.
Yeah, definitely, and through that practice, because when you get more oxygen inside of your body, a lot of things happen. Like I remember one time I had a toothache, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't have no pain pills or anything like that. So what I did was I sat down on the desk. I put my head down on the desk, and I was like, man, I'm just gonna breathe. And by the time I was at this when I was working at the YMCA, I went to go told my manager I need to go sit down. I sat down, put my head on the desk, started breathing, and my toothache went away, no lie.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can the toxicity and the depression work the opposite way? Because you mentioned coming into a home where there's a bunch of noise, if you will. But what about for people that come home to an empty home? I have a lot of friends who live by themselves now, divorced, different things like that, or just single. And it's interesting because they wanted to be single for a long time. I'm doing me, I'm blah, 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 blah. And then that 1 year turned to 3, turned to 5, to 10, 15. And I can notice sometimes anger, possibly some bitterness, and maybe depression.
Yeah.
Can that happen as well in the reverse?
It can, because the one thing about us as humans is that we need each other. We need connection. Like if a baby is not touched when the baby is born, the baby will die. Like we need that. And I think that when you get to a point where you are in your home alone, the biggest thing that you could do is cultivate the relationship with yourself. Like I remember I had a friend, and she actually, her son was leaving, right? Leaving, going on to school. And I told her, I was like, hey, this is a beautiful time for you. Like, I was like, this is your time to really get to know yourself. And I think the problem is that a lot of people don't put the energy into themselves to know themselves. You know what I mean? Like, and when you're alone, sometimes people fill space with other people. So it's a mixture of solitude and togetherness. Because we need that balance. But now what happens is some people fill that space with pets.
Yeah.
And that could be a problem too, because now you don't know how to relate to human beings. You know what I mean? Like, and so when you don't know how to relate, it makes you get it gets weirder. You know what I mean? Like your interactions with people get weirder. You start saying things like dogs are better than humans or pets are better than humans. And there's nothing that could replace human interaction.
Yo.
Wow.
I got a friend that be buying straight wardrobe per season for the dog.
Per season? Like a new season of clothes for the dog?
Dogs.
Dr. Gary Whittaker is here. I want y'all to follow him at Gary Whittaker. D Sharp just called and said, man, that's great. You got Coach G up here.
Oh, yeah. What's up, D Sharp?
Okay, you know D Sharp, MacArthur Mays.
MacArthur
you know
Mays.
the DJ for the Warriors, Heather. You know D Sharp.
Sway.
I just want to get,
Look, Heather, Sway is the ambassador of Oakland.
Thank you.
Sway he does a good job of being an ambassador and making sure Oakland is put on the map.
But Dr. Whittaker, not just Oakland, California. He's decided now anything Oakland, even Oakland, Michigan, with his basketball team.
Right?
He started claiming that after he called them bootleg a week before.
I'm for it.
I can't win, citizens.
You better let that's family right there. Your father owned a gym?
No. So this is the thing. my grandfather
Okay.
was a naturopathic doctor.
Okay.
And so the craziest thing is this, right? So I'll tell you all this story real quick. So basically, in 2018, I was outside of my gym, and something came in my head, and it was like, check to see if your grandfather's alive, right? And I was like, that's interesting, because I never heard about my grandfather dying. My dad, I had a upbringing where my mom was definitely on drugs, my dad was on drugs, and you know, like, he didn't do a good job of letting me know who my family was on my dad's side. So at 36 years old, that's when I met all of my dad's side of the family. At 36,
Grown man.
Wow.
Grown man. And so then I met my grandfather. So I called my Aunt Eula. I was like, hey, Aunt Eula, is my grandfather still alive? And she was like, well, I haven't heard about him dying, so let me see if I got a number for him. So she found his number. I looked him up on Google, and he had won the lottery. He won like $10,000 on the lottery, but that was the first time I seen a picture of him, right? And so then I call him up, and I'm thinking all these feelings going in my body. I'm thinking about the rejection, all that.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, is this Herman Maiden? And he was like, yeah, this is me. And I was like, do you have a son named Gary Whittaker? Because I'm a junior. And he was like, yeah, I got a son named Gary Whittaker. I was like, I think I might be your grandson. And he said, I think you are my grandson. And so then my family had a family reunion on my Whittaker side. They had a family reunion. So I go out to the family reunion, and I met my grandfather for the first time, and I literally I was crying.
Yeah.
Tears.
Yeah, man.
Just bawling. And it was because, like, he came in his lab coat. He had his doctor's coat because he worked for the VA, and he had his own practice inside of the VA. And so I spent 4 hours with my grandfather, and this was the most powerful 4 hours of my life.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Like, I got a chance to kick it with him. We talked about herbs. He told me about my great grandmother. She was a herbalist, and that's who he learned from. And then also I went inside of his house. He had this room. It was a 12 by 12 room, and it had nothing but degrees and certifications. It was like he had a bachelor's in mathematics. He was a doctor of iridology. He was a holistic doctor, a naturopath. Like, it was bananas that I seen this, and I was just like so in awe. And then in 2019 December, like, I used to call him, so I would call him every day. Yeah, I'd be like, hey, you know what I'm saying, like, what's up, Grandpa? And we would just chop it up. And then he would before he died, it was interesting because before he died, I asked him, I said, hey, Grandpa, I was like, can you give me your library if something ever happens to you? And he was like, yeah. He was like, you can have my library. So I tried to call him around Christmas. He wasn't picking up the phone. And then my uncle, who I never met, answered the phone and was like, he's dead. And so at that point in time, like, I look at it like everybody has a hero's journey, right? And so for me, I wish I had more time with my grandpa, but he showed me everything that I needed to see about who I was and where I come from.
Yeah. Yeah, man. Man, that's a beautiful story.
Yeah.
Say his name 3 times.
Dr. Herman Maiden, Dr. Herman Maiden, Dr. Herman Maiden. Rest in peace, Pop.
Wow. So was he the inspiration behind plant-based fitness?
So plant-based fitness came out because in 2012 I was working at the YMCA, right? And so what I was thinking about, like, I worked a lot of sales jobs. So working those sales jobs, I was always on the other end of customer complaints. Receiving end. So I remember one time, it was this customer was yelling at me on the phone, and I was like, hey, I just listened, and I was like, the only way I could help you is if you calm down. Sorry. And I was like, it's all good. And so I helped them. So I got a lot of good customer compliments. Yeah. But I just didn't like being on the receiving end of that. So their health was my thing because I was a wellness coach at that time. Then allowed me to think about, like, being innovative. I was like, what is missing? I had already been vegan for 14 years. Okay. Or during that time, it was since 2009. So I was probably like about 5 or 6 years. And I was like, So I incorporated a plant-based diet and exercise. I was 46% body fat at one point in time.
Damn, shit.
I got myself down to about, the lowest I've ever been was 10. And, like to lose that amount of body fat percentage, it lets people know that it's not really about weight. Because if we know about BMI is not always accurate for people of color. And it's because
what is BMI?
BMI is body mass index.
Okay, all right.
And body mass index was created during the military times so they could quickly get people into military access, service. So I did that on myself, and I was like, wow, let's combine these two things together. And so at first, when I first came out, my logo was PB Fitness. And people was like, what's PB Fitness? And I was like, it's plant-based fitness. And so at that point in time, I just kind of spread it out. And then I started training people. And the one thing that I started noticing is that people's bodies start changing. You know what I mean? Like every person that I would put through this process, it would happen just like that. Like body fat down, muscle mass up. And I was doing a lot of body weight strength training during that time. So I was working at another gym. And then that situation kind of changed a little bit. Like I had some things where people were still in clients. So I was like, all right, let me branch off and do my own thing. So I had a dream about a work-live space, right? So I go online and I start looking up on Craigslist for work-live spaces. And then this space popped up. And then at first I didn't think I was going to get it. I had did really well in business, but I didn't know about the credit thing. I was like, I'm not sure if I'm going to get this. And so at the end of the day, it was April 2018. And I moved in on May 15th, 2018. So that was when I got the my actual gym location. And so I started off by doing classes. Yeah. And then I was doing semi-private training. And so that was the birth of plant-based fitness.
Where is it located?
It's in Oakland, California. So now this is the thing.
Go ahead and clap him up, Tone.
Yeah,
come on, man. Come on.
Yeah, man. That's for real.
So this is the thing. Everything is serendipitous in my opinion, right? I had a nice run. You know what I mean? Like in 2018, from 2018 to about this year, actually, I had to close my doors. You know what I mean? Because the fitness industry had changed. Yeah. You know what I mean? The fitness industry changed in a way to where I thought people were going to be ready to come back and do in-person training. It didn't pan out. And so I had to close that location. I still do the plant-based fitness services. It's just online now. So I had to make a pivot.
Oh, that's smart. Yeah. So What, online, how can they reach you?
They can reach me through my website at www.plantbfitness.com. Okay. You can also reach me on Instagram, Dr. Whittaker. And I'm that on all platforms.
Okay, www.plantbfitness.com. How long did it take you to, this is my last question, how long did it take you to lose 103 pounds?
So the 103 pounds was over different periods of time. So basically, the first time I was like 260. I got myself down to 190.
All right.
I learned something because what happened was I gained it back.
Wow.
So that's another thing, too, is that people don't understand the process of like, if you don't put yourself in the right habits, because what happens is this, is when you start losing weight, you start looking good. And when you start looking good, people start to get comfortable.
Yeah, that's happening with me right now. Go ahead, cousin.
Right. And so
good
when
luck, Charlie Brown.
Look,
Please.
Look. And so when you start looking good, you stop doing the habits that got you there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so the reason why I'm so effective at helping people to lose it, because I know the process. Like I know what it's like to lose it, gain it back, and the emotional state that you're in when you do gain it back. Yeah. Because then you got to do it all over again. And so then I lost it again. And then I lost it. I was at 240. I got down to 193. So you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that process, and that's why I say it's a journey. Like your health is a journey. You're going to go through different phases of your health. You might not be vegan. You might be eating meat. But then eventually there's different levels of nutrition. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like Dr. Aoki was saying, he talks about fruitarianism. Yeah. That's the highest level of nutrition. You know what I mean? Like, because you getting all your enzymes and everything is available, is bioavailable. And so, but a lot of people ain't ready for that because we have to come to a point where we are stepping ourselves up. So just think about that. It's just a ladder. You know what I mean? Like every time you're stepping up. And as we get older, it's imperative that our nutrition changes. The problem is that we keep eating the same things that killed our family members before.
Yeah.
And then we want to get mad and say F cancer. Cancer ain't the issue. It's your family bad habits.
It's the choices you're making, right?
Yep.
Dr. Gary Whittaker, I want to thank you, my cousin, for coming through.
Yes.
Man, look at our family, Heather. Y'all got
Beautiful.
doctors? I got doctors, right? All right. Can you consult Heather and her family too?
Yeah, I got it. So the thing is, like, at the end of the day, my goal is to help people through generational health.
Yes.
You know, because we talk about generational wealth.
Yeah.
But we don't say nothing about generational health. And I say this. They say the revolution will not be televised, and it's actually true. Because the revolution starts with what you put in your mouth, and the only person watching is you.
Dr. Gary Whittaker, I want to thank you for coming by.